As we move to Level 1, Unit 2, you'll see on page 155 that we're going to look at another 4 chapters that deal with enhancing the display of our workbooks. And in Chapter 5, you're going to see how we can move data within and between workbooks. In Chapter 6, we'll maintain our workbooks, organization mainly, file management. Chapter 7, we'll learn to create charts in Excel. And in Chapter 8, we'll add visual interest to workbooks. So we will begin with Chapter 5, which begins on page 157. And we're going to look at the performance objectives. As you'll notice here, we will create a workbook using multiple worksheets. And in the past, Unit 1, we looked at information that was contained mainly in one workbook within one sheet. But in this chapter, we're going to look at how we can have multiple sheets with multiple pieces of information within one workbook. We'll learn to move, copy, and paste cells within a worksheet. We'll learn to split a worksheet into windows and then freeze panes. We'll name a range of cells and then use a range in a formula. We'll open multiple workbooks at a time. We'll learn to arrange, size, and move workbooks. We'll learn to copy and paste data between workbooks. And then finally, we'll learn to link data between worksheets. Okay? So you may want to read the bottom paragraph there on page 157. And then, as always, we've got model answers that are being shown to us on pages 158 through 160. As we begin Project 1, you can tell at the top there we've got 9 parts to Project 1, and we're going to open a workbook called RPFAC Accounts. Facility accounts is what they are, and I've already opened that and named it as they've asked us to in Project 1A. But we're going to, in this workbook, you'll notice that there are 3 worksheets, sheet 1, 2, 3. They all have very similar information in them. The first sheet has January information for 2012. Sheet 2 has February information in it. Sheet 3 has March. But they all look pretty much the same, and they're running. This probably is very familiar to you. It looks like a checkbook. It has the dates, the check numbers, who the check was made to, the description of that check, the amount, deposit, and balance. So we're going to generate a little checkbook with formulas, but in the process of doing that, we are going to complete some of the objectives that we just mentioned at the beginning of the chapter. We'll also, in addition to moving and copying data between worksheets, these 3 sheets, we're also going to learn how to hide and unhide worksheets. So when a user opens a workbook, they would only maybe see sheet 1 that contains the January information. So we'll learn to hide some of those sheets within a workbook, and then we'll also learn to format and print multiple workbooks within a worksheets within a workbook. So we're going to begin actually Project 1A. I went ahead and did the first, I guess it's the second item there. We're just kind of going through the different sheets and explaining the different parts to them. Then in item 3, this is in Project 1A on page 161, item 3 asks us to change the column widths for some of these. So in sheet 2, they want us to make some column width changes for E, F, and G. So I'm going to select all of those so that when we make the change, it'll apply to all of those. And we want 10 for this. So we're going to widen them just a little bit. We'll do the same thing for sheet 3. Again, I'm selecting the 3 columns, increasing the width to 10. And then we'll go back to sheet 1. And I'll go ahead and save that as they ask us to. And then the Project 1B has us moving information within a worksheet. And we'll do a variety of things with that as well. But when we move items from one cell to another, you'll notice that we'll get a moving dashed line around a border, and that's called a marquee. And so that's just an indicator that you're in the cut mode. When you paste it to another cell, that floating marquee stays there until you press escape to remove it. Or you can also double click in any cell. So, alright, so in Project 1B, we're going to start in making some changes here again by cutting and moving information from one cell or more than one cell to another group or another location within the worksheet. And the first item they ask us to do is from sheet 1, they say that the sublet rent deposit was recorded on the wrong day. Correct day was supposed to be January 9th. So we're going to move some things around. In cell A13, you'll notice here the Rainier Supplies check. We're going to insert a row here, and then we're going to take the sublet rent, which is in row 8, row 7, and then we're going to put it in that blank row. So first of all, we're going to insert a row. So I'm going to lay my active cursor in cell A13, and then to insert a row you can do it a variety of ways. I'm going to choose to right click on 13 on the left. I'm going to right click, and that gives me a shortcut menu, and it also selects the row in the background, and then I can just click insert. That inserts the row, and then they want us to take the information from row 7, because remember they said that they had incorrectly recorded it on the wrong date, and I'm going to cut that and move it to row 13. So one way to cut, with that selected, I'm just going to right click and choose cut. Notice the moving dashed line, which is called the marquee. To move it, I'm going to go to cell A13. I'm going to right click and choose paste. And that moves that from row 7 to row 13. And then they want us to go back up and remove row 7. So I'm going to just right click again on the 7. That not only highlights the row but also gives me a shortcut menu, and then I'm going to choose delete. Then where the deposit is, they want us to change the date to January 9th. So I'm just going to type in January 9. We'll see what happens there. It automatically formats it like the other cells, which is good. Then continuing in project 1B, they want us to do the same thing or the similar actions and steps to sheets 2 and 3. So again, the Rainier Supplies, evidently the deposit was made on the incorrect date, should be February 12th. We want it to appear right below Clear Source but right above Rainier Supplies. So again, I'm going to insert a row. I'm right clicking on row 13, choosing insert. Then the rent is on row 7 again. Cutting, I'm going to go back to the Home tab for just a minute. You can use the ribbon, click on that. Then I'm going to click in cell A13, use the paste button on the ribbon, and that will move it from row 7. Again, I'm going to delete row 7. I'm right clicking on it, choosing delete. And then again, we're going to update the rent so that it reflects February 12th. And then in the third sheet, same thing. Rainier Supply, we're going to insert a row. Going to move the rent. Last alternate way of cutting and pasting, I'm going to press Control X on the keyboard. Then in cell A13, I'm going to press Control V on the keyboard. That's another way to cut and paste. Again, we're going to delete row 7. And I'm going to change the rent date to March 7th. So, had a variety of ways of cutting and pasting on each of the 3 sheets. You choose whatever method is most efficient for you and quickly that can be done. If you'd like to copy information from one worksheet to another, or even within the same worksheet, you can surely do that using the clipboard. And we're going to take a look at copying some items from one area, actually one worksheet, to another worksheet within the same workbook. And they talk about the paste options button. They describe that a little bit at the bottom of page 163, and then on page 164 they actually show you what the paste options drop down list looks like. And there's a variety of options in that. When you lay your mouse over each of the icons, it tells you what it can do. But we'll take a look at that in our example in Project 1C. So again, in the same workbook, we're going to go to Sheet 2 first, and we want to take cells C7 through E9, and we're going to copy those to the clipboard. So I'm going to click on the copy button, and actually I just want to make a note here too that when you cut something, it goes on the clipboard as well. It's a temporary storage area that your computer has, so copying is the same thing. So I'm going to click on the copy button, and then we're going to go to sheet 3, and in cell C7 we're going to copy that same contents to this sheet 3. So I'm just going to click on the paste button. I could also right click. Notice the paste options button that appears. If you press the control key, that will expand out the drop down list. You can also click on the drop down arrow as well. And then what we want to do is choose the keep source column widths as the option. And as you lay your mouse on all these, you can see what the options are as you paste. But we want to keep source column widths. I'm going to click on that, and that'll adjust it so that it looks as the previous sheet did. Then notice here at the bottom in your status bar it says select destination and press enter to choose paste. We could go to another sheet and continue to paste this same information. And it stays on the clipboard until you cut or copy something else. Okay? Now, click back on sheet 2 where we got the information. The floating marquee there is still going. So I'm going to press the escape button on the keyboard, and that will stop from being in the copy mode. Now, if you look on page 165, they talk about using the Office clipboard. If you want to copy multiple items, like maybe you want to copy that from row 7, and maybe you want to copy that information from row 11. If you want to capture multiple areas or multiple cells, then you need to display the Office clipboard. And by doing that, then that allows you to capture multiple items to be pasted in other places. But you have to have that clipboard option and that particular task pane open before you can do that. Otherwise, as I mentioned before, when you copy something, it stays there until you copy another item. So if I click copy on that, and then I pasted it somewhere, I'm going to deselect that, and then I went down here and copied again, then that replaces what you had previously. Copies over. Same thing with the cut as well. It'll replace what you have, unless, like I said, if you're using the Office clipboard, then you can capture several different or multiple items to be copied or cut. So we're going to practice that in Project 1D, and the first step that we want to do is we want to display the clipboard. And to do that, you're going to go to the Home tab in the clipboard group and just click on the little dialog box launcher, and that'll launch the clipboard. You can see that right here. We're going to capture 2 different areas and then paste them to another worksheet. So the first one, and we need to be on sheet 1, and we're going to capture C15, and I've already got it highlighted through E16. So C15 through E16. And then you just click on your copy button, or you can click Control C, or you can right click and choose copy, any of those methods. Notice that that is being captured now on the clipboard. And you'll notice at the top that you can have a total of 24 different copies that are being stored and saved. Okay, so that's the first one. And then the second one's going to be C19 through E19. And again, I'm just going to click on copy or Control C or right click and choose copy. And so the most recent is listed first. That was the Parkland City Services. And I think it'll display up to 50 characters so that you can see 50 characters of that copy. And then it lists the most recent first. Okay, now we're going to take those 2 items, we're going to copy them to different sheets. So let's click on sheet 2, and in sheet 2 we want to go to C15, and we're going to use the General Systems Developer copy that we chose originally. And really all you have to do is just click on it. I know there's some options here, paste or delete, and you could choose paste there, but you can also just click on it and it puts that into the cell that we selected first. And then we're going to go over to sheet 3, again still in cell C15. We're going to paste, and then also we're going to take Parkland City, paste that into C19. So I'm going to click on that and paste. Now notice on your clipboard too, you could go to maybe a whole sheet altogether, and if you wanted all those to be pasted simultaneously, you could certainly choose paste all. And then there's also a clear all option there. So, and that's what they really want us to do at the end of Project 1D. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the clear all button. And that clears out your contents. And then we'll go ahead and close out of the clipboard. just by clicking on the X in the upper right hand corner. At the bottom of page 166, they talk about pasting values only and formulas from one cell to another, and we are going to deviate just a little bit from what the instructions have us doing in Project 1E. If you'll notice, let's see here, let's go back to sheet 1. There are balances. Now we will fill in a formula here initially, but they'll want us to take the balance from January, at the end of January, and they want us to copy that to the balance, the beginning balance of February. And then we'll put a formula in, goes all the way down, and then they'll want us to take the ending balance and copy that to the beginning balance of March, which is what you want. But the one thing that they do a little bit differently is they want us to copy the value itself from the ending of one month to the beginning of the other. Rather than copying just the value, I'm going to show you how to copy the actual number, so that if anything changes in one of your months, it'll automatically update for the next month. And I think that seems to make a little more sense than what they're trying to do in the project. Now if you want to go ahead and do the project on your own, that's totally fine as well. The numbers will come out the same. So we're going to first of all put a formula though in. Notice we're on sheet 1. We're going to put a formula in that will calculate the balance from the previous month, and we want the formula to take into account either in a check, whether a check has been made or a deposit has been made. So to do that, we're going to start out with an equal sign. We're going to take the balance from the previous month, and we're going to, no, let's don't do that. Let's back up a minute. Let's start out with an equal sign. Let's take F6, which would be a plus because that's a deposit. We're going to minus out if any checks have been made, and then we want to add whatever the previous balance was. And actually I think the book has you putting the amount and the deposit in parentheses, and then whatever's the result is, then have it add back to the balance, which is fine. So go ahead and press enter there. So we get 6,000, and basically what's happened in this one is $896 was the previous balance. There was no check amount, so nothing was subtracted, but then the deposit of $5,500 was added to our balance. So that's how we came up with the $6,396.50. Now we want to be able to copy that formula down. So in so doing, I'm just going to go ahead and use the fill handle, drag it down. And I want to take a look at some of these formulas here. If you'll notice, and I'm just randomly choosing on this, if you look at the formula, it says F8, which is right here, F8 minus E8, because that's your check, and then we're adding what the previous balance was in G7. Okay, another one down here at the bottom we'll take a look at. Oh, let's take a look at this one. The deposit, which is in F12. Okay, and that's a plus. And then if there is a check, which there's not a check for this particular one, we would minus that out with E12. And then we add the G11 above it, which is the previous balance. And you take that all the way down through the end of the month. Then what we want to do is we want to take that amount from sheet 1. Notice we're in January. We want to copy that so that it becomes the beginning balance for February. And to do that, I'm going to use a link. We're going to link this cell to the cell down in G20. And I'll tell you what, let me backtrack out of that too, because we can copy and paste link, and I'll show you that just to keep kind of consistent with what you have been taught so far with copying and pasting. So I'm in January, ending balance. I'm going to copy this to the beginning balance. Now the paste options you'll notice here, you can paste it, paste the values, which is what the book wants you to do, okay? And that's not a wrong thing, but if for some reason later on you go back to your January sheet and you make a change to it, this will not automatically be adjusted because it's not associated or linked in any way to sheet 1. The third one there is copying the formula. Transpose, formatting, and paste link is the one we want. So I'm going to click on paste link. Notice that brings up the 714. If you click in that cell, I'm in G5, notice the reference to that's going back to sheet 1, G20. So it's taking in whatever's in cell G20 of sheet 1. Now let's just for a minute here, I want to show you what's going to happen. Let's say that the deposit on January 9th is $1,500 rather than $1,100. When I change that, that automatically updates all the rows. It changes it here. If you go to sheet 2, it automatically updates it there as well. Now if you do what the book shows, it's showing that they want to paste just the formula, and when you do that, then they're no longer connected. So if you'd made a change in January, that would still be 748 or whatever that number was. So I'm going to undo that so that it changes it back to 1100, and then we're going to go into sheet 2, and again we need to put a formula in very similar to what we did for January. Start out with an equal sign, the deposit minus the amount plus your balance, and again we're going to put parentheses around the check amount and the deposit, and then we're going to autofill down. Again, we're going to copy this ending amount, so I'm right clicking copy, take it to this third sheet, right click the paste part, we're going to paste link, bring 472.24. Again, I'm in sheet 3 in March. Another formula that takes the deposit minus your check amount and then adds back your previous balance. Parentheses around that, press enter, and then autofill that down. So you can see ending balance there, and again all three of these sheets now are connected because of that paste link. So any change made in February will automatically update, change all the numbers for the March sheet.